Hey, welcome back to The Dive. So recently, our team, led by our CEO, Steve Hyland, had the opportunity to interview one of the most honored guests here at the Daily Dive. He's a chairman and founder of several big companies known worldwide, a Wall Street legend, and the best-selling author of Investment Biker and a venture capitalist, Jim Rogers. But before we get started, let me talk to you for a second about that important red button at the bottom of this video. You can click it. It's called the subscribe button. If you click it, you will get more great interviews from top shots in the investment world and updates from CEOs of the most promising small cap companies in Canada and the US, which might help you make an educated investment decision. So subscribe, hit like, and don't forget that little bell so you'll be notified for future videos. Enjoy the casual interview with Jim Rogers.
So Jim, it's truly great to speak with you, and I really appreciate you taking the time to chat with us today. Okay, so in recent years here in Canada and in the US, we've seen tremendous asset inflation without inflation hitting everyday goods. Do you think at some point we see inflation of everyday products start to kick in?
Well, Steve, history would indicate we will, because whenever governments have printed and borrowed gigantic amounts of money, it has always led to inflation. Maybe something's different this time, but you and I both know it's very dangerous to say it's different this time.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so let's say that inflation did pick up. Let's say that in the US we saw inflation kick up to maybe 5 to 8%. Do you think central banks would, or how do you think central banks would react if we did see inflation pick up?
Well, if inflation picks up to 5 to 8%, many central banks, the ones that are still competent, would do whatever they can to stop it. The problem is these days, Steve, many central banks and many academics don't worry about inflation. In fact, they think that inflation is okay and in fact good in some cases. Historically, central banks would do everything they could to stop inflation once it sets in. I don't know about this crowd or the next crowd.
Mm-hmm. So what advice do you have for young people in Canada? They're starting out, they don't have very much capital. They're watching assets just inflate. So for example, we're here in Canada, real estate just keeps getting further and further out of reach for young people. It seems like there's a bit of a divide between the capital class and the labor class. What advice would you have for young people?
Well, listen, I was once a young person who didn't have any money and prices kept going up. So all I could do was save my money and try to make enough money to do something. I eventually did. Actually, in my case, in those days, I found a very cheap property. It was cheap because it was in an area people didn't think much of in those days. Fortunately, it was cheap. I bought it, and the area had a huge revival. So maybe if young people can save their money, maybe they will find an opportunity, find a bargain somewhere. But listen, Steve, I was a poor young person once. Now I'm a poor old person, but we all have the same problem.
So when we were having you on, I chatted with a couple friends, said we're going to have Jim Rogers on. We were really excited. And I talked with one friend of mine. He said, can you ask Jim about his thoughts on hydrogen? How does he think hydrogen is going to have an impact on our future?
Well, Steve, scientifically, I am not terribly knowledgeable. I read that hydrogen has a great future, but can I tell you specifically that it does? I cannot, but I read that it can do wonders for all of us, especially as far as efficient and cheap and clean energy. But I don't know. Maybe I could ask my 12-year-old daughter. She might know better than I do. But everything I read says it's got a great future.
So you're living in Singapore. Why did you decide to live in Singapore?
Well, for many years, decades, I've been telling people to teach your children and grandchildren Chinese. Then I had one. I was doing it in New York, but then I realized if I was really serious, I had to put her in a place where she had to speak Mandarin. So we looked at China, but China's filthy. China's very, very polluted. So we wound up in Singapore, where they speak English and they speak Chinese. And it's a very, very efficient and successful country, as you probably know. So here we are. And so far, I have two children now. They both speak perfect Mandarin, perfect Chinese, and it's worked very well. But I came here just so much, Steve. I don't know if you have children, but many people who do know we do just about anything for our children. Very strange things. People move to live near a football coach or a music conductor or whatever. I moved to Singapore so my children would speak Mandarin and so they would know Asia, which is going to be extremely important in their lifetimes.
I have a 3-year-old son who I went to kiss goodnight tonight, and he headbutted me, so I've got a bit of a fat lip right now.
But you would what?
I have a fat lip because I went to kiss my son tonight for bed, and he came in and just boof, popped me good.
Well, as I say, we do anything for our kids. And
so
it's wonderful, but it's sometimes complicated.
So Jim, I assume you're one of these people who you love what you do, and it sometimes becomes an obsessive thing where you have thoughts about certain investments or commodities and you can't get it out of your mind. And here you sit down, you're with your family at dinner, and you're trying to turn that off and just engage with your family. How challenging is that?
Well, of course, it's challenging, especially when you're consumed by it. Fortunately, Steve, I have gotten a little more consumed in recent years by my children. I will tell you, I never wanted children. I thought children were a horrible waste of time, money, energy. I felt so sorry for all of my friends like you who had children. I said, oh, poor Steve, he ruined his life. He went and had a child. Well, I was wrong. I was totally wrong about children. I didn't have children until very late in life. But if there's anybody watching this who hasn't had children and you're old enough, I urge you to be sure to do it and not miss the opportunity, because it's a wonderful, wonderful experience. And so I have learned now, my children turn it off, Steve. Yes, I can be sitting here thinking about silver all day. But if my children, when I go to the dinner, they are pretty effective at changing the subject.
Okay. You mentioned silver. What's your thoughts on gold and silver here? Do you think that there's been a ton of stimulus? Do you think that it's already kind of baked in, or do you think we've got a nice little bull market for the precious metals ahead of us?
Well, I own some gold. I also own some silver. I will be buying more eventually. I'm waiting for this correction. I mean, I'm not very good at market timing, but my plan is that sometime in the future, I will buy more gold and I will buy more silver. I will buy more silver, Steve, than gold, because silver is much cheaper on a historic basis. Gold is down maybe 10% from its all-time high. Silver is down much, much more from its all-time high. But I will buy both.
So, commodity investor, legendary. When you're looking at a commodity, what are you looking for to make you think that it's the right time for a particular asset class? Is there like are you looking for when there's blood in the streets, when there's nobody in the streets? What's sort of your general rules for going long a commodity?
Well, the more it's ignored and the more blood, as you put it, in the streets, the better. But Steve, I have learned that I'm so bad at timing that when I decide to buy, then I say, okay, now wait, because my timing is bad. So I will always wait and try to get my timing better. But when everybody hates it, if it's at a near a low, something like silver still down 50% more or less from its all-time high, I know that's not a top. So I'm more interested in things that are depressed and down on a historic basis. And then if you can figure out the supply and demand situation, you might make some money.
Mm-hmm. Bitcoin, it's obviously all over the headlines right now. What do you think? Do you think a central bank will ever buy Bitcoin?
Well, I have never bought or sold a cryptocurrency. I obviously wish I'd bought Bitcoin, Steve. I have friends who are doing great in Bitcoin. But I hasten to tell you that many cryptocurrencies have disappeared, as you probably know. There were hundreds of them. Many of them have gone to zero and disappeared. Bitcoin is not one of those, obviously. And I want to also hasten to tell you, Steve, that money is going to be on the computer. Nearly every country in the world, including the United States, is experimenting and studying how to put the currency on the computer. And they love it because first of all, it's cheap. You don't have to print the stuff. You don't have to transport it. You don't have to secure it. Accounting is much easier. And more important, Steve, it gives them complete control. They know everything you do. They will call you one day and say, Steve, you've had too much coffee this month. Cut back on they'll know everything. Now, they love it. Of course, I hate it, but they love it. So all money is going to be on the computer, but it's going to be their money, Steve. If Bitcoin makes it as a currency, not as a trading tool, as a currency, the governments, at least historically, have always made it illegal. They don't like losing their monopoly. They don't like losing their control. And the Bitcoin guys say, listen, we're smarter than the government. And they are, Steve. They're much smarter than the government. But the government has the guns. The government has the tanks. And if the government says it's illegal, most people, I anyway, will not use Bitcoin as money or try to.
I actually have one more question for you. So we're a small cap focused platform. We generally, Jordan and I are two guys. We read financial statements primarily. We love reading balance sheets, income statements, cash flow statements. We're stock pickers. So what's your take on stock picking?
Well, no. It's extremely important for the people who can do it. The nuts like you, because I'm one of them. If you can love it and do it, and then you get good at it, you probably will have a great success. And maybe that's why Deep Dive is a place that people should watch. But if you really love it and you can do it, I mean, Steve, there's nothing better than stock picking. Yes, macro guys make a lot, the good ones make money. The commodity guys, the bond guys, the currency guys, if they're good at it, make money. But the guys who can do, small caps, and you can get it right. I mean, I don't have to tell you, and I don't have to tell Deep Dive. I mean, those stocks go up 10, 20, 30 times. That's where the best fortunes are made if you can get them right. So don't stop. Don't stop.
Yeah, and that's what we love about it is we get access to management teams and we get to call them up and ask questions. You'd never get that with the large caps. It's not like we can call Tim Cook and ask him about Apple's earnings, but we can do that with our micros.
You make a very, very, very good point. The head of a small cap company, probably nobody calls him.
It's true. Right. These gold juniors, we're calling up a lot of the CEOs, and it's like they forgot that they were CEO of a junior mining gold company because it's been so long since the last run in gold stocks.
Well, if you're right, eventually he won't talk to you either, because he'll be a big cap. His stock will go up a lot, and he'll have dozens of people trying to call him. But no, I remember very, very, very well how if you call a guy who nobody else calls, first of all, he's startled and surprised. But when he gets over that, he's quite happy to talk to you about as much as you want.
Yeah, and it's one of the few spaces where we get to talk to subject experts, and they'll just pick up the phone, and it's just something that nerds like us just really we love. And Jim, thanks so much.
Well, Steve, I don't have to tell you that it's nerds like you who have a lot of fun and also eventually have a lot of success. So don't stop. Thank you, Steve. I guess everybody should watch Deep Dive.
I hope you liked this interview. For more interviews, click like and subscribe. We'll see you next time on The Dive to talk all things small caps.